Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled Mess with a Farmer, Enjoy the 30 feet hay wall. The area where I live used to be all farmlands where properties were large and mostly grounds for planting. That was back in the days when my grandparents and even great-grandparents owned it. Over time though, the farms got sold and the land cut up, where now people have a home and usually a small back garden. I kept the family farm though and want to do my best to run it the way I can. The residents though seem to hate that I still keep it as a farm and did not sell the land and let more homes be built. They think that I am being stubborn, but really, I love my family's legacy and truly enjoy the work of a farmer. Still, the land is not huge and I've been having many problems when it comes to storage. I have multiple sheds because I found it the easiest way to store things the most effectively. So I had the idea to try and create a site to process the waste on my farm to save on space. The town though rejected the application, so I was left with trying to figure out even more ways to save space on the farm. I have bales of hay and nowhere to put them. I had them in the middle of my fields, but still, the neighbors constantly complained and were trying to get the town to shut down my farm and force me to sell the property. I was sick of these people who wanted a nice view right through my property and didn't want me doing anything to disturb it. At one point, the neighbor who lived behind my property came up to talk to me. "Neighbor, are you kidding me with these hay bales?" "Me? I need to put them somewhere. They are in my fields. It doesn't concern you." "Neighbor, it's an eyesore. Why don't you move them to the other side of the property?" "Me? I cannot. My sheds are over there. I have a farm to run and I have the right to do what I want with my own property." "Neighbor, we will see about that. We stopped that stupid waste idea of yours and I will make sure that the town makes you shut down for this one." Now, I had always been raised to not let anybody mess with me, so I decided to get a little revenge while at the same time complying with what my neighbor asked and moved the hay bales out of the middle of my field. Honestly, the new idea was much easier for me. I just didn't do it before because I was trying to be polite. Screw politeness now though, he was going to get a taste of how it seemed to have your neighbor finally take some revenge. I got some trailers and lined them up against the back fence of my property, the very same fence I shared with the neighbor. Then I started to stack the hay bales right on top of the trailers, making his view of my property impossible, and all he was able to see now were the hay bales. Keep in mind, I did everything according to law and was well within my rights to put them there. It was my property after all, and none of it was leaking onto his or stored in a way that it could fall onto his property. The neighbor got pissed, and when he came out and saw what was going on, he came over to me screaming that he was going to get me arrested for what I had done and then stormed back into his home. It was hard not to smile when I saw that my 30-foot tall wall of hay bales pissed him off. If you think it was kind of extreme that this guy was known to try and call the cops on me at least once a month over something stupid like the watering of my crops being too loud or even him claiming half of my land belonged to someone else. This revenge was long overdue, so I didn't feel bad about it. He, of course, did try and do something about it in the form of calling the fire department, saying that my wall was a fire hazard. I let them come and inspect it to see that they were stored properly and were not considered a fire hazard at all. I shook their hands and they went on their way with the report that nothing was wrong with it. That was really the only thing neighbor could have tried to do, because if it was a hazard, it didn't matter whose property it was on. The wall stayed and neighbor got mad and actually tried to sue me for it. It did not get to the courts though, because no lawyer he talked to could find anything illegal about the bales of hay. In fact, him calling the fire department worked in my favor because of the report they wrote saying that they were stored properly and were not a danger to anyone or anything. He shot himself in the foot with that one and could not do anything else but complain about the wall and insult me. He loved to go around and call me a bully for intentionally making his view horrible. It was clear that he wasn't actually worried about safety or even the hay going onto his property, he just wanted a nice view at my expense. Now I know some people are wondering well what I'm going to do with a 30-foot wall of hay bales. As much as I would love to keep it up indefinitely to bother him more, it will slowly dwindle down over the next few months. I need to use it to feed the animals when it gets cold and they need to stay indoors. It will also get used like a mulch in the spring for my soil. The crops I grow are very good and part of the reason is that I take really good care of my soil. I don't want to be too much of a jerk of a neighbor, so I don't really know what I will do about my bales of hay when the next summer rolls around. The only thing that is stopping me from doing it over and over again is that I know some of my other neighbors who are nice people that didn't really like what I did either. For their sake, I might find a new storage option for my bales of hay, and if neighbor keeps messing with me, I'm sure that I can find another method of revenge. When you live on a farm, there are always plenty of things to work with to put a jerk neighbor in his place. And Ripe Stars, since we are veterans of Reddit, we all know you never mess with a farmer. That motto is just always true, and here once again we can see what happens when you do mess with a farmer. Although I have to say this was pretty innocent and not as brutal as some of the other farmer revenges we have seen before. And the next one is titled Ruin Me, Lose Your Money. A bit of background first, this petty revenge started when I was 9 and I was a small boy, 4'9", 35 kilograms or 77 pounds. The names you will need to know are David, the a-hole kid, Shayla, a-hole mom, and James, my best friend. So, the petty revenge starts in a small town in Ireland. I was in a primary school/elementary school. I was not very popular, but I just kept to myself and my friend group of 4. The biggest kid in the popular group was David. David did not care about me for most of primary school until 4th grade when we went to a forest park on a field trip. Most of the class was playing Bulldog Takedown. I decided not to because I had overindulged on McNuggets and felt sick, so I just sat down and cheered for James. For some reason, this personally offended David and he went over to me and dragged me onto the area where they were playing. He then said, "You're in play now," lifted me up and slammed me into the ground, breaking my collarbone and putting me in hospital. I don't have a picture from the time, but I will link a picture of the bump I still have nowadays. David got off with a warning because he claimed it was a mistake and it was just a game of Bulldog. But from then on, I was enemy number 1 in his eyes. Over the next year, he tormented me with little things like taking my pants and purposely kicking the ball at my head, but then the worst incident happened on our 5th class field trip when we went to an adventure center with no parents for 2 days. On the first night, all the boys were in one room and just having fun with some light pushing and shoving. David then picked me up on the top bunk and threw me into a bed frame, which split my head open. Again, I don't have a picture from the time, but I will link a picture of the scar I still have nowadays. I finally told my parents that David was bullying me and they made me move schools for my last year of elementary school. I remember when they told me that I shouted at them, "You are ruining my life," because I don't make friends easily. A year later, we decidedly moved from a small town in the Midlands to Dublin, the biggest city in Ireland. I was happy with that because I was going to have to start a new school anyway. Fast forward 3 years and it turns out after growing a bit, I'm pretty good at rugby. I got a scholarship to a very expensive rugby school in Ireland, which costs around $10,000 a year, and worked my way up to sitting on a board of 4 people to decide on what rugby player are given scholarships. The board had 4 people on it. The principal, our rugby coach, the director of rugby in our school, and a player on the rugby team, which was me. We had meetings every Wednesday where players that scouts had recommended would speak to us and tell us why they deserve a scholarship, and in order for a player to get a scholarship, the vote would have to be unanimous. One day David appeared. He walked into the room full of energy and ready to speak to us. As soon as I saw him, I knew it was David, but I could tell he did not recognize me. He spoke for about 25 minutes and I just sat there smiling and trying not to laugh. As soon as I spoke, I saw his eyes open wide. He recognized me and I could almost see him shudder. He knew he was not getting this scholarship. I spent 10 minutes taking apart every single good thing he said about how he played until my coach intervened. In the end, he got 3 out of 4 votes. 3 out of 4 votes meant he did not get a scholarship, but he could still pay the 10,000 euros to get in, which he did. By the time he was on my team, everyone knew what he did to me and his life was 3 weeks of hell. After 3 weeks, he left the rugby team and I found out through the principal that he left the school. And yeah, ripe stars, I would say that is exactly what a bully deserves, although I would say such an awful bully probably even deserves more. However, I am curious, if you would have been in OP's situation, would you have done the same? Because in the past we had a few stories similar to this one, where surprisingly OP even forgave the bully. However, this was obviously not the case here, which I can also understand. And the next one is titled Work Jerk. So, I have never posted on here before, but I just had to after what this lady at my work did today. I work in janitorial at a factory and unfortunately this means that people tend to be a-holes because they see me as someone below them. While I take pride in doing my job well and my bosses say I'm one of their best, for the last few months though some lady, let's call her Jane, at the factory I clean, keeps complaining about every little thing to my bosses, whether it is true or not. Well, recently, she's been lying to my bosses and saying that I don't ever clean the ladies' room, despite the fact that literally anyone could tell that I have, since it would be disgusting otherwise. Because I know that the factory doesn't allow restroom breaks very often, so I always let the women use the bathroom even if I am actively cleaning it to be nice. I mean, who wants to hold their pee for several hours? Well, because Jane complained enough, a new rule was put in place that means I now cannot let anyone into the bathroom as I clean it until I have finished. Jane is notorious for overusing her time in the bathroom to skip out on work, so needless to say, there have been a few times that she has started leaving her area to use the bathroom. Given how thoughtful Jane has been about making sure that I do my job properly, I have taken to making sure to always be cleaning the ladies' room in break room whenever she needs it. The first time was the best, so let me share that with you. I came out of the bathroom that I am cleaning to grab some more of my supplies, only to find Jane there waiting. Jane is frowning like usual and saying, "Hey, could I use the bathroom? I really have to go, and the other bathroom is under maintenance right now." I put on my best fake apologetic smile and shake my head. I'm sorry, but I cannot let anyone into the bathroom until I'm fully finished cleaning it. I would say you could wait, but I wouldn't want you to get into trouble for standing around doing nothing. Jane scowled at me. "It won't take long. Can't you just move the sign for now?" Once again, I shake my head as I gather up the supplies I need. No can do. I have a schedule to stick to and I cannot go against company rules. I would not want anyone to think that I'm not doing my job correctly after all. Jane was getting annoyed at this point, but I could not care less. I pushed open the bathroom door and gave her one more, oh so apologetic smile before heading in. I will try and hurry, so you can use it soon, but there's only so much I can do. Sorry, Jane. Then I went into the bathroom and took the longest time I could to clean it. By the time I came out again, Jane was gone and I couldn't have felt happier. I knew she would have to wait who knows how long until her next bathroom break, and the thought of that makes me grin so much. I still do it whenever I can, and there is absolutely nothing she can do in retaliation either, besides giving me the stink eye. Edit number 1, I've been looking through the replies and have seen a lot of concern about Jane's health. I would like to clarify that 9 times out of 10, Jane does not even use the bathroom when she is in there. She grabs her phone from her locker and takes it into the bathroom to play on it and watch videos instead of using the stalls. There are other bathrooms that are not too far, and the time where I denied her the bathroom as I cleaned it when the other was under maintenance was just a coincidence that worked in the favor of the revenge. I got relatives who have issues with their bladders and would never risk anyone's health for some revenge because that is pretty messed up. I didn't want to leave anyone worrying about anyone's health, so I decided to add this edit in. I only took longer that one time with the cleaning because I didn't want anyone else in the factory to be punished for how Jane has been to me. I used to look the other way when people like Jane would go to the bathroom just to play on their phone instead of working, but I decided to stop turning a blind eye and prevent her from doing so. The way I see it, other people shouldn't have to pick up the slack because Jane wants to play a phone game instead of doing her job. Sorry for not being clear enough in the original post and for making people concerned for other people's health. And the next one was posted by user Catastrophe on our own subreddit r/ripe stories, and it is titled, "Write me up when I do all the work around here." Okay. This is a Tales from Food Service story, so I will make this story about my revenge. It is petty, but I don't care. This story takes place while I was working for the worst micromanaging cheapskate imaginable. He liked to micromanage so much that if you were doing anything other than making food, this includes cleaning, you would be sent home early. Well, at least that was my experience. For others, let's say they had it a little bit easier. This story is about how one petty assistant manager lost the company one of the 3 employees at the store who could make dough, and how I cost them others. So, while working pizza, I happened to work at the fast food version of pizza. You know, the one whose mascot repeats their product in their advertising. And by the way guys, I'm curious, can you identify whose pizza company and mascot they are talking about? When it comes to pizza fast food chains and mascots, I would probably think of Little Caesars, but maybe there's another one I'm not thinking about. Anyway, if you got an idea, let us know in the comments. Well, this store was run down to say the least. Some of the highlights would be any kind of cooler constantly broke under any strain, various electrical sockets and devices that would shock you when interacting with them, a grease trap that would overflow, and sinks that would not hold water. Now, on to the revenge. Assistant manager and I butted heads regularly as he didn't like me and I didn't like his cronies. This particular one, I hate to use the term, but that person liked to spend the majority of their time in the walk-in cooler on their phone and in general not work. After a few times of me pointing out that none of the closing duties are being done and they were talking about how they stayed until 11 PM the night before, this crony got put up on the chopping block. AM did not like that, so I got written up for some BS. Me, still having a difficult time with my anger, decided that the best course of action was to enact petty revenge. I got written up for a petty reason when I stated that I refused to sign it. I was threatened with suspension, I called their bluff and then quit. So that is how the assistant manager lost the company, one of the very few people who could make the dough and prep a day's worth of dough in 5 hours. Now, since the write-up was regarding a protected class, I followed up with the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission and had an investigation done. Every senior member of the staff jumped ship. They suddenly moved states, changed numbers or careers. Now, I did not win my case, as you can see, anyone who's a witness became difficult to get a hold of. If I ruined anyone, not sorry. That is the risk you run when you work management for a company that violates the law. You shielded bad actors, and how did they reward you? Terminated after being tossed under the bus. Guess them JJs at my expense came at a huge cost. I was so mad when I quit, I'm surprised I didn't do more. I literally just finished preparing every pizza for the day. I wanted to pull over all the racks and the extras that don't fit. I just got done and attached my resignation form to the manager's door by the pin I signed it with. The part that made me the most irate, their telephone greeting was a script I came up with, as opposed to their unprofessional, "Hello, what do you want?" I used my time spent in customer service to create a script that informed the caller of the name of the business, the location, the name of the employee, and our specialty. This reduced orders from other stores, upsold our advertised products, and increased sales even at other stores, as I could direct them to the other store by giving out the number. No recognition, but saved them a ton of money on remakes and cancelled orders. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist. which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.